Reporting live, Sadie Sinclair, Channel 7 News.
How was your Pride? Did it involve walls of police that looked like Hitler's SS? Or to use a more modern example, ICE agents guarding detention centers here in the US? Today's episode is an attempt to catch some of you up on what happened at the end of June and early July around some of the villains of this podcast. The agents for Israel, Senator Scott Wiener, District Attorney Brooke Jenkins, and wannabe supervisor Manny Yekutiel, who runs Manny's in the Mission. Balto from the newish media project out of the Mission, Frisco Voices, will be on later with Joshua Reyes, who has been doing a lot of court support at the Golden Gate 26 hearings and sentencing meetings. Although this episode is going to be a little bit insidery and have a lot of characters that are Bay Area specific, these are stories that are playing out around the world. Some of the archetypes and cliches will be familiar to people who live in other liberal cities that have Zionists attempting to take over governments to keep that sweet cash flowing to Israel. On the topic of cash, this podcast is not a capitalist endeavor, but I do accept donations at patreon.com/sadfrancisco. Please join DJ Because, Sahar, and Lark, who all recently started contributing there. I'm very grateful to all of the members of the podcast. You help me pay my bills. Before I play the conversation between Josh and Balto and I'll give you a little bit of an update on California State Senator Scott Wiener, the local gay Zionist, using the fact that he is gay and Jewish to get political points. And he's running now for Nancy Pelosi's congressional seat. I think that Scott may be best known to non-SF residents for a viral clip from earlier this year where Scott and his two rivals for Congress are at a town hall campaign event, and they're asked to raise these little signs if they believe what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. And Scott's two rivals raise their signs without hesitation, but Scott can't bring himself to do it in 2026. That's not what voters want to see. And Scott clearly knew it was a bad look because very soon after, he released a video where he calls a genocide a genocide. But for me and everyone I trust, it's too little too late. I don't believe this man. Since he started making his way up the political ladder, starting in the Castro as supervisor over 10 years ago, Scott has been very calculated. He is a lawyer, and I believe that he would say anything to get into Pelosi's vacated seat. And so I believe that what he did during another viral clip, the Friday of Pride weekend, was just as calculated. Scott walked through Dolores Park on the Friday of Pride weekend, just before Trans March. I was there. He was not welcome, and I got a little video as we escorted him out of the park. Now, Scott knows that Trans March is historically not a place for any politicians, even trans-friendly politicians. 10 years ago, he was booed off stage, along with then Mayor Ed Lee and Mark Leno. Trans March is not a place that you're supposed to come for a photo op. And Daniel Lurie found this out last year. He was immediately booed out. This June, Scott's PR team was ready and immediately started painting the people who had escorted Scott out of the park. They called them anti-Semitic. And this is something Scott has done for years, conflating anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, even as he, for example, gets Palestinians removed from any mention in California social studies classes. He's been trying to end free speech, in particular around Palestine. And from his little perch, Scott has come for a bunch of the people who have been on this podcast before, people who, in some cases, have been fired, in part, at least, as a result of Scott creating a furor around them for espousing pro-Palestinian viewpoints. News cycles are so quick now, but for at least a 24-hour period, Scott was on almost every news channel. Even Fox News was covering him using like the velvet glove treatment, I would say. California Post, New York Post, famously right-wing tabloids, similarly coming to Scott's aid. He was also able to raise a ton of donations with this little stunt. The National Review's headline was "The Mob Comes for Scott Wiener." The Haaretz headline, the Israeli paper, "Classic Anti-Semitic Trope." In the SF Standard, they ran a piece, "SF's left has a growing anti-Semitism problem." We're still hearing the same narrative of the growing anti-Semitism problem among the left years and years after it was first instrumentalized. Scott gets no points for calling genocide a genocide, especially in San Francisco. I don't have any proof that Scott was responsible for the increased police presence that night of Trans March. But that night, after Scott was chased out of the park, cops turned on people at the end of the march with pepper spray guns at Turk and Taylor, famously where Compton's cafeteria and the anti-police riot happened back in 1966. They were there in force. Some people left bloody. He hasn't talked about the people arrested. He hasn't called for dropping of the charges. The cops charged vandalism, resisting arrests, and in one case, battery of a peace officer, which seems to be maybe spitting from what I can tell. And police notably didn't do anything about the aggressive drivers who kept threatening with their cars to run over people that were on this march that happens every year. And the next night, Saturday, at the Stud Alley party that happens every year for the past 6 years, bunch of cops wearing riot gear charged the crowd during this annual block party, arresting 20 people, again, putting property first. At the arraignments, the DA side depicted the vandalism as retaliation against straight people. So a lot of people were cited and released. Then on July 13th, Trans March met with Daniel Lurie, the mayor's office, with 3 demands: dropping all charges against those arrested, investing in community safety rather than policing, and replacing police presence with SFMTA, Muni traffic management in the future. Daniel Lurie did not agree to any of these terms and expressed that he wanted to keep the conversation open, which, is a strategy for demobilizing people as some of the arrested people still face felony charges. I didn't even know that there was such a thing as felony vandalism. Brooke Jenkins, also famous for coming for the Golden Gate 26, the Bay Bridge 78. It's very clear what side these people stand on. It's very clear to me that Scott is an enemy of the people, but whether his PR team can manage to convince people otherwise, we'll see in November. Would you all introduce yourself to people as you would like to be introduced?
I'm Balto from the Mission. I'm just the main person running Frisco Voices.
Josh Reyes, I'm an organizer, abolitionist, Mission native. I'm a security director by trade, and I have a passion for being on the front line for the people in collaboration with anyone who's truly fighting the power.
So, to start, I thought we would introduce Frisco Voices to people that have not become familiar with y'all.
For sure.
Over the past couple, has it been a couple years that?
It's been about maybe a little 2 years now, maybe, or a little over. But essentially, I started during the mission defense protests, which happened back in 2021, I believe. This is when Calle 24 agreed with Hillary Ronen to build these fences around the neighborhood because they wanted to deter the sale of illegal goods. Yeah. But it was actually to deter like people using drugs out there, which people are going to congregate in public places so they don't overdose. That's why they do it, which is why we need safe injection sites, etc. But anyways, they made this decision without public input. So I went to like a Calle 24, like community hearing, and like people were kind of frustrated, you know, but it was just like, if you're going to do this, we just want to have community input, which was the ultimate like agreement. And people, you know, for the most part agree with that.
Might as well tell people the extent that the city and police went to basically fence off public area where people had been congregating for many, many years. You want to like describe how it looked before and then after the fencing when they brought in the mobile units and everything?
Yeah, no, totally. It used to be one of the most vibrant places to be in San Francisco. Like people would always go out there. Like you'd have over hundreds of vendors just selling anything. People were trying to hustle and bustle. And then Hillary Ronen agreed with Calle 24 to build these fences and then enact like this whole permit process, which costs like over $400. Yep. Like if you're just trying to make like a quick 20, 30 bucks, am I going to go through that whole process? No.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to feed my family, feed myself right now at this moment.
Yeah.
And that's what people would do. Yeah.
So annoying. Yeah. Process. Yeah. It's about control and about getting to say who gets to be the small business, who gets to be in public space. Basically felt like they were trying to impose a curfew, which we saw a couple of times early in the pandemic, but then all of a sudden, they're putting up these fences.
Put up fences. We have like cops now every time on the corner, like constantly. Like just today, I was walking by 3 cops just right there on 24th and Mission. We used to have a paddy wagon on 16th and Mission, but that got defunded because they found out that Daniel Mayor Lurie, his little squad van out there costed like over $250,000 of taxpayer money. Yeah,
absurd. Just like a big Winnebago style mobile unit just sitting on the plaza to make sure that everybody felt unwelcome.
Yeah, or had their presence that things are under control, which it was the same shit it was. Yeah, like but prior.
Yeah, and they do it in the name of safety, but it's always the question like who are they making safer? And in this case, it is a few gentrifying small business owners, a few right-wing kind of influencers that hang out around there. Omar Ward, for example. So you're part of Mission Defense, and did it kind of make it clear that there needs to be more alternative media?
Yeah, like I wrote for some other folks too. I wrote for Frisco Cop Watch as well, which they've done really great research. But I was just like, I have to have my own outlet because a lot of people want to critique your work too and things like that. And I also wanted to find an outlet for other people. I feel like there's really good poetry or like anything out there. Like I've always said, like, I'll pay people $40, not much, but, at least trying to get some work out there for folks. But ultimately, like, I've never believed in the political system just from my own upbringing and experience. Like, I don't believe in politicians, like, and a lot of these nonprofits are kind of colluded as well within, like, I guess you could say like working within the system, trying to, get all the funding they possibly can. And when any of that's like potentially touched or anything, like they just like freak out. They're just like, no, we have to be aligned. Like it's like this whole Zionism, liberal Zionism, but we could talk about more, but yeah. But I guess my Frisco Voices, like I created it ultimately to have a platform for folks out here and just really talk about folks from the streets. I feel like a lot of people, especially Tecolote, especially Mission Local, like it's just a particular lens of the way they paint things and write. Like you can use total cuss words. Like fucking Mia Abul Jamal.
Political prisoner.
Yeah.
People that don't know.
Like fucking Joy.
Yeah.
What's her name? Fucking off the top of my head.
Joy James?
Joy James, yes, thank you. Yeah, like one of those beautiful fucking writers. Yeah, like, and she cusses, you know, but obviously you're not like going to do it repetitively. It's just like when there's a particular point and purpose to use it, because you have to emphasize like, this is pissing me the fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, so it's real. And I feel like a lot of these places have been more conservative and they want to paint a lens, which is kind of what Mission Local is.
I am basically cheerleader for any alternative media that comes up in San Francisco. It's just so clear that we need more than just Chronicle, SF Gate, the local news, certainly. Like, I mean, I think of Betty Yu, this local newscaster who would go out to the Mission just to film people like, you know, selling shampoo.
Yeah, I remember that.
In order to like sort of create a narrative that this part of Mission Street was so dangerous that we need to spend, you know, $250,000 on a Winnebago for the cops, just doing all of this propaganda work, but under the guise of being a local news reporter. And that's just one example of why we need to move beyond the corporate institutional news that we have.
No, totally, because they want to just work within the frame. Yeah.
You, like me, don't believe that politicians under the current system are doing right by people. At the same time, you have covered a lot of the sort of goings on of politicians.
Like Manny's is probably one of the best examples I can think of. It just comes to my mind with Mission Local. Like Mission Local, I think they've been holding events there for the past couple of years. They'll have obviously District Attorney Brooke Jenkins. They'll have Matt Dorsey, who's like a former meth addict, worked on SFPD, and now he's like totally anti-poor, like harm reduction. This guy's out there, like you benefited from the system and now you're trying to take it away from people.
No, he set up this safe injection site at the beginning of the pandemic here at Civic Center, took credit for it, and then a year later when, you know, the politics changed after he had relapsed and he saw the way that politics were going and that they were going against harm reduction, so he immediately sold out those people that he had said he was there for. So how did you become familiar with Manny?
Manny, you want to start?
How did I become familiar with Manny? People have been protesting Manny and his Cursed Cafe on 6th and Valencia for years. OGs in the game have vehemently protested his, not just his placement, but his ascension into politics and into the spotlight. People have, for years, several years now, consistently protested him at his place of business, at his brick and mortar.
Yeah, I feel like just like the Mothers on the March, I went with Equipto's mom a couple times, was the first time I was introduced. I think it was for Brooke Jenkins too. We were just like banging out there.
Oh yeah, she was an early guest of right-wing DA,
But then I found out, obviously, that Gay Shame called out Manny because in 2017, when he came out here, he put on his Twitter that I'm actively looking for a Zionist group to be actively involved in. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to dislike this man, as it turns out. I guess we can give a very brief intro to Manny, who has unfortunately made many appearances by way of other people talking about Manny on this podcast. I will be very happy when I no longer have to say this man's name. There was talk of him moving his business to LA for a second. And I was like, please.
Oh, wow.
I feel bad for LA.
For real, please.
So Zionist who gets a sweet spot on 16th and Valencia, like prime location in the Mission, opens the doors to his cafe that he opened and named after himself, of course. And he wasn't new to politics. Very quickly, he ascended in local politics. He got appointments by Mayor Breed. But he had come from like Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. He worked on that. He worked on Mark Zuckerberg's tech lobby group called Forward.us. So, I mean, he had all these connections before he came in, and then sort of opened this cafe to make it seem like he was just a local dude. He had also been a Whiter Bridge pinkwashing fellow. So Whiter Bridge was this LGBTQ group that mixed pro-Israel message with like pro-LGBTQ message and tried to convince people that if you're gay, you got to support Israel. That organization has since closed. This place where Manny Yekutiel was
there was like loud statements too, like Israel is like only gay, like Palestinians or something like that.
Yeah, if you go to Palestine, they're going to throw you off the roof. Or,
yeah.
You know, and so totally discounting the existence of queer Palestinians.
Yeah.
And the fact that nobody is safe when Israel is on the rampage, including, I mean, queer people in Israel itself. Israel has tried to paint itself as like this safe haven for gay people in order to distract from all of the nefarious shit going on. He was in Israel on October 7th, and suddenly he was on the news, like reporting about how we needed the Iron Dome, that the US needed to support Israel through this, to spend more money on these weapons, which we all know how those weapons have been used over the past couple years in Palestine. He also started a foundation with several local billionaires called the Civic Joy Fund, and through that has tried to monopolize parties. He started that with this Trump ally, crypto kingpin Chris Larson. His company was the number one donor to Trump's inauguration just over a year ago, as well as the Gap and Levi's dynasties, of which, the Levi's dynasty is what Lurie is a part of. And so he immediately had inroads into local politics and like political power. And people like London Breed saw that and were like, oh, maybe it would be a good idea that I put this guy into my cabinet. Mm-hmm. And now he's running for higher office. He wants to become the supervisor. Yeah.
District 8, right?
District 8, Castro, Noe Valley. And he has, in the past, he told the Chronicle that he was interested in pursuing the mayorship at one point. So he has his eyes on something bigger. He's working his way up.
Outsider. Just total, like, I mean, I feel like the Manny's Cafe has become like the Commonwealth Club for the Mission District.
That's a good comparison.
It's like Commonwealth Club is just like total, like moderates, like kind of conservative. You bring people in and then
Peter Thiel.
Fuck, oh my gosh. Yeah. Fuck.
But then also Manny's has had, I always think of how he brought on Sam Bankman-Fried to his podcast. This is like one of the fallen crypto bros.
Yeah.
He's currently in prison for, swindling a bunch of people out of their money, as well as people like Matt Dorsey. Like he had a night he called the A-Gays.
Oh yeah, and the Tenderloin, right? It wasn't in the Tenderloin, but
I think it was at Manny's.
It wasn't Manny's. Damn. Okay.
He had the three gays on the board of supervisors, who it turns out were the most right-wing conservative people on the board was just, it's sadly a very San Francisco sentence to say. And like them, Manny has been using the fact that he is gay to kind of cover up, in the same way that Israel covers up its crimes, to distract people, I would say. And people, I would say, like, even in San Francisco, a lot of people don't necessarily pay the closest attention to local politics until it directly affects them.
That's real.
But with Manny trying to become the supervisor, the next step on the ladder towards mayor, towards who knows beyond that, more people are paying attention.
Yeah, and just so people know too, it's like other people are starting to pick up and recognize like the Civic Joy Fund, those night events are problematic. Like I think Janelle Monáe just pulled out, which was cool. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Janelle Monáe pulled out of a Civic Joy event a year ago. Kehlani had pulled out of a festival at Pride that also gotta give props to Nikki Jizz, local reparations party drag performer, and another group that throws parties called Vacant Gay. Oh, cool. And Manny, his idea is to like kind of pay people off. Once you get paid by Manny, are you really going to bite the hand that feeds? It's like so hard to make it as an artist, performer of any kind in a place that's so expensive. And suddenly you have this Zionist dude who has access to seemingly unlimited amounts of money. I'm sure it's hard for some people to say no to.
Yeah, that's real.
Who is so good and so slick at acting like one of us, when in fact they conspire against us. I'm reminded of a time, shout out to Mama Ganoush, who on this podcast said Manny denies his association with the Wider Bridge. Turns out that gave Manny a damn medal.
Yeah.
Just to decide how duplicitous and serpentile this person is.
Yeah.
It really is fascinating. And to quote Mama Ganoush again, when you meet Manny, you become confused talking to this person. You're like, wow, you don't seem as bad as everybody says because you're so smooth.
He's
so
slick,
cute, good looking, eloquent.
Some people have used the word Mossad. He was in Israel on October 7th. Just happened to be out there. Not try to start any conspiracy theories necessarily, but
for real.
So most recently, people have not been messing with Manny for some time because of the gentrification. There's the Zionism. There's like the quote unquote woke washing of his cafe. But more recently, like, there's the allegations that have come out.
I don't know their pronouns, but Brad had recently made the allegations against Manny Yekutiel known publicly. Brad alleges that some 6 years ago, Manny, who has a reputation for being handsy Manny at party, right? Handsy Manny has a reputation for doing too much. Brad alleges, and we all support Brad, alleges that Manny had shoved their hands down Brad's pants, grabbed their genitals on both sides, and refused to let go, no matter how much Brad pleaded and protested for Manny to get off of him. Unfortunately, so often, people in power feel it as though they're entitled to some sort of phantasmal sexual playground with people who are of lower either social standing or capo standing than somebody like Manny Yekutiel. We stand with Brad. Brad is who we believe to be a victim of sexual violence. To do what Brad is doing it's a gargantuan task. Manny has a wealth of contacts, a wealth of wealth, and a wealth of power that makes speaking against someone like Manny, it can seem futile at times.
And one of the issues is he had reported it to the DCCC, which is the local Democratic committee, and they have a process for reporting, but it just kind of failed. It like sat there for many, many months. And another thing that we should talk about just briefly is that not only is this unfortunately an issue that we see time and again with people in power, but also Zionists, like in Israel specifically, the use of rape as a tool of war has been so well documented, and it's just coming out now. Some of the intense for people who are incarcerated in Israel, like the way that the IOF, that the Israeli government tries to just break you, is through sexual violence.
Right. So the New York Times, for example, is notoriously pro-Israel. The New York Times is one of, if not the biggest, most internationally recognized publications in the world. They have staunchly been pro-Israel, pro-Zionist, anti-Palestine. They always talk about the pro-Palestinian movement in derogatorily. Well, now that the world is speaking against Zionism, the New York Times could no longer turn away from these truths, and in surprising fashion published a seething report about the sexual assault of Palestinians by the Israeli military, the IOF. This account by the New York Times speaks to, in such revolting fashion, use of inanimate objects being inserted into the bodies of Palestinians who are being unjustly imprisoned, and in most cases, not even charged. Yeah. What the New York Times wrote about them is just one case in which you can read upon the sexual assault of Zionists onto Palestinians, which illustrates and gives some context to the sexual violence of Manny Yekutiel, in that this is not just a one-off. Sexual violence is the Zionist way, abroad and at home.
Yeah, and Manny, he says unknowingly has had Israeli soldiers speaking about their work at Manny's.
At Manny's, yeah. Like, what's that? NorCal SJP. They've been calling him out pretty on point, as along with Scott Wiener. Scott Wiener's like had conversations with IDF members. Scott Wiener invited somebody to the cafe, and they called him out. This guy is just problematic, and obviously the Civic Joy Fund working with the mayor, and he's obviously very close with Mission Local, and Mission Local has kind of like been very protective of Manny, I feel like.
So Joshua, would you be down now to talk about your experience with Manny, and then talking to people who have worked for him?
Yes. There are some doors you kick down. There are sometimes you find a back door, and there are some doors you pick the lock to. I took it upon myself to proverbially pick the lock to Manny's organization by coming for somebody who was highly placed in the organization, and for out of respect for their privacy, we'll just call the subject of the story Jane. Jane was a highly placed person in Manny's organization, worked for them for a long time, was arterial to the operations day in, day out. Mid-pandemic, in the wake of George Floyd and the BLM uprising, Jane, who was then working for Manny, I would see Jane at defund SFPD now protests. It was really strange to see them out on our side protesting with us.
He did a smart thing early on, because he was presenting his cafe as sort of like this nonprofit. He got a community board, that he
Yeah.
threw up on the website, and he went around to, I mean, I want to say lobbying. Like, he went out, he met some people that he identified as being sort of leaders in the community, and was like, will you be on my board? In some cases, it probably felt good. You know, who is this guy who's so slick, who's asking me to be a part of his organization all of a sudden? And an organization that suddenly has people like the president's wife coming to speak there.
Yes, thank you for pointing that out. Manny's really good. And on a bigger level, the Zionist entities do a really good job of disguising themselves as one of us by speaking to things that are clearly unjust, like the police and police violence. They'll jump in just enough to look like one of us, talk like one of us, but turn around and be like, so what we really need to do is, you know, kiss Brooke Jenkins' ass, kiss the mayor's ass, and, you know, fight from the inside, and this corralling to the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
To engage in more of their good cop, bad cop, Democrat, Republican BS. I had started to tell the story of someone who I had approached who was working for Manny in a highly placed position, and we'll call this person Jane. I reach out to Jane and say, hey, will you just have breakfast with me? I feel like you're one of us, silly. We should just talk. They agreed. So over the course of this breakfast, we sit down and I'm like, hey, you seem like one of us, but you work with the enemy. You seem really, really cool. I can see your heart. I can feel your heart even just across from this table. It doesn't quite make sense that you work for this Zionist. Zionism is in white supremacy. Jane is not a white person. Jane is brown. It doesn't make sense. And they had sort of expressed that, you know, working for Manny connects you with a ton of people being so close to the top.
Yeah.
Manny's, you know, is always in bed with the mayor, the police, media. He's a media darling in some sense.
Yeah.
Bigger than San Francisco. Manny does interviews with the New York Times.
Right.
So Jane, over the course of this breakfast, long story short, it's as though their liberation was born at that breakfast, because what started out as almost like a negotiation between opposing sides turned into Jane's emancipation from their job as they had this come to Jesus moment and decided to put in their 2 weeks at Manny's on the spot. They immediately left this breakfast, walked right down the street to Manny, and put in their 2 weeks notice on the spot.
It doesn't always work like that.
Yeah, for real.
It's, you know, heartening to know that there are plenty of people who have reached out to me as well in the DMs, like, Manny's not a good guy. I've worked for him before, and he maybe slick at the beginning, but there is the possibility of changing people's minds around it.
And so it's so interesting how people are jumping into the Zionist white supremacist side because of greed and power and all these things that we're fighting. What happened with Jane happens through revolutionary love. You know, when I decided to have this sit down with Jane, I was met with a lot of resistance from people in my then organization. People were like, how are you going to talk to Manny's right hand? How can you talk to Manny's people? We don't F with them people. We don't even talk to them people. How can you do this? And I insist that, you know, some of us just don't know how entrapped we are by whom it is we break for. We're all having this shared experience of POC people in capitalism, in the Manhattan of the West Coast here in San Francisco. And sometimes it takes just a little love. And while certainly we have to exercise levels of exclusivity to the enemy, it's important that we remember that we are still having this shared experience, and it just takes reaching out sometimes. Normally, this sort of change happens incrementally, but sometimes if you just plant the seed, over time, that seed becomes a flower that becomes the garden.
Yeah, because we have like differences of opinion. Like, I don't know, for example, a lot of people don't like Roberto Hernandez because he's like pro cop, everything. He wanted to run for supervisor. He wanted to arm the people at the plaza with guns, which was wild. That was a statement. But he was also arrested 131 times for lowriders. He really petitioned to like advocate to have lowriders like legalized. Dianne Feinstein was a supervisor at the time, and he kept getting arrested, and then he had a class action lawsuit against the city, and he won. So now we always have lowrider events out there. It's hella pigs, police, but we're allowed to be drunk, high, as long as I'm not messing with anybody and, being out of control. But that's why they're there. Like, it's legalized now. Because like LA, it's cool, the lowrider events, but then they get shut down and people got to move to another location and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't like Roberto for the cop stuff, but what he advocated for, and like the fact that he got arrested 130 or 131 whatever times, like that was crazy.
Strange bedfellows. Like, you make allies with people that you wouldn't necessarily have thought you would have allyship with in order to get what you want. I think that has been the case with Manny. I think the earliest days of the boycott, when people were out there every Wednesday picketing and gay shame, queers undermining Israeli terrorism, Mothers on the March came together, Black and Brown Social Club was there, people from different spaces coming together.
Just like what you said, I'm sorry, I just wanted to piggyback, like revolutionary love, like that's pretty radical. Like everything that you're talking about that happened there, like these people that are working for Manny are so damn impressionable. Like they're probably brand new to the city, got hell experience. Like, oh, I want to fucking make it. I want to work with this guy. And then you sat down and showed some real fucking compassion and be like, hey, you don't need to be there. There's other spaces for you here. And they were probably just like, you know what? I'm out of here. Fuck this shit.
And if I may, how I really grew to respect the work that Balto does. Balto was standing up for an action at 24th BART where they were fencing out people who were just congregating, or perhaps the city was trying to push out people who were also selling things the way that people would sell things on the street. Culturally, in the mission, this is what we do. Balto, as a part of mission defense, was standing up for people who deserved to be there but were being forced out by the city. I think London Breed was the mayor at the time, and not only was Balto and his group taking a stand against the city, Balto also had to come face to face and to convince people who look like us, who are from the mission, that it is incumbent upon us to take a stand. It's not just the government and the powers that be who are fighting. We are also fighting within ourselves, people who are still stuck at their stages of internal patriarchy. In other words, OGs from the mission who are like, get out of here. Why are you protesting? Why are you sticking up for these people? We need to be cool with the police. You need to just go with the flow. What Balto did, and what Balto and his organization did to take a stand, was a fight that they had to do on multiple fronts. And it's not easy to do. As they stood there, standing against the city, standing against the police, they would have people who look like you and I really, really hating on him, hating on them, coming for them physically, verbally, aggressively, but they stood their ground nonetheless, and they came back day after day after day. And this went on for some time.
No, right on, brother. I appreciate you, man. Like, that was crazy time.
And, it's not enough for us to just take momentary stands, which is probably why Balto takes the consistent position of having his own publication, Frisco Voices, which follows up on these matters and makes things tangible to people. And I really love the name Frisco Voices.
Megan, bro.
Frisco native, Frisco representative.
Yeah.
San Francisco sounds nice, but, Frisco, aka Fresco, is really who we are. And I really F with what Balto does with that publication and how he really does give a voice to the people. So salute to you, brother, for all the
Right on, bro.
anytime I see Balto get active, it's a shared experience.
Right on.
Oh. Let's talk about Golden Gate 26 a little bit and start with the good news, like let people know what the most recent outcome has been.
All right. So you can't have light without the dark, can't have dark without the light. In the case of the Golden Gate 26, what we have now are the final 7 whose charges have led to fully been cemented. The other 19 have reached their conclusion with the law via diversion programs or some other bargaining with their charges, to which I can't speak all that specifically. But the 7 of the Golden Gate 26, they have, over the course of the last couple months, been fighting it out in court right up the street of 400 McAllister. These 7 are the ones who were part of the main obstruction on the bridge as they stopped the Golden Gate Bridge during an International Day of Solidarity on April 15th, 2024, as there were other acts of solidarity, big grand acts of solidarity, standing up for Palestine in New York, Los Angeles, London, and so forth. And they went on to do this for 4 hours. So the 7, they have been fighting some really serious charges. The jury handed down a verdict. As of last Friday, I've been found guilty of false imprisonment and one other misdemeanor charge. They face a maximum of 5 years in county jail. Being that the jury was hung on the felony, this has turned into a mistrial, right? They're duly hung on a misdemeanor, as I had mentioned. So they are going about planning or getting on calendar for their retrial of the hung charges. Their sentencing date is August 21st. And what the city had tried to do was schedule the second trial to begin on the same day as their sentence date.
Yeah.
It's absurd as hell.
In my mind, this is a case of the district attorney, Brooke Jenkins, who looms large as a local villain over San Francisco, even though she's only been in office for 3 years now. She has made it one of her pet cases to set a precedent to make sure that people cannot go out and protest a genocide.
Protest everything else. But hey, if you rise up against Great Israel.
From day one, I mean, she was tweeting about basically, anyone who has any kind of compassion for Palestinians is evil, Hamas, the buzzwords that she knows is going to play with her liberal to right-wing base. Do you want to talk a little bit about how she came into power?
Absolutely. The district attorney of San Francisco before Brooke Jenkins was a man called Chase Boudin, who famously was the district attorney to put charges on police officers, a practice that had almost seemed non-existent. This was a breakthrough. The powers that be then engineered a recall of Chase Boudin. which was spearheaded by someone who was formerly in Chase's office, Brooke Jenkins.
Right.
Brooke Jenkins led the charge against Chase Boudin and the recall against Chase Boudin.
Right. So she led the recall and then she got the job. You know, like she got straight into that DA-ship, which, you know, in San Francisco, we've had like Kamala Harris as a DA. Like people know San Francisco as a stepping stone to higher office. A lot of people from outside of the Bay come here for that very reason, to just climb political ladder.
Thank you for bringing up Kamala, because the parallels cannot be ignored between Brooke Jenkins and Kamala Harris. Not just simply for the fact that they are both Black women, but by design, Kamala ascended into being the vice president of the United States.
Being tough on crime.
By being tough on crime,
Yep.
which truly means prosecuting poverty, right?
Yep.
Which
Yep.
we can go on and go on about.
Damn,
And
that's real.
charging people who oppose Israel, charging people who oppose Zionism is how they came to be in power.
Yep.
Which can be said of almost any highly placed Black or brown person in politics. So when it comes to Brooke Jenkins, what she is doing against the Golden Gate 26 is in keeping with the model America was built on, and it's the American way. Brooke Jenkins coming for the Golden Gate 26, making a public example, a public flogging of these people, and putting these outlandish charges on people who all they did was cause a traffic jam on the bridge. I mean, Waymos caused longer traffic.
I mean, yeah.
And they shut down the Golden Gate Bridge on 4th of July for fireworks. And then
Some cloudy ass fireworks
didn't
show.
even go well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So they shut down the bridge for several hours for fireworks. And then these autonomous self-driving cars, Waymos, blocked blocks and blocks of streets.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
okay when the city does it. It's okay when big tech money does
Right.
it. But how dare you protesters block the bridge and cause a traffic jam in the name of stopping an illegal genocide? How dare you? Here comes Brooke Jenkins, and she is making an unjust example of these people. What happened on Golden Gate Bridge was a demonstration in keeping with international solidarity for Palestine, in solidarity also with the Stanford 11, who are facing trumped up charges for their actions against Stanford University and their usage of their multi-billion dollar endowment. They're protesting the Stanford University giving their money to Israel. We are also in solidarity with the Philippine 25, who were just found guilty last month for actions they took against Elbit Systems. Elbit Systems are the tech company that built components to the missiles that kill Palestinians by the tens of thousands. And everyone from the UN to country is genocide scholars. Even Holocaust survivors are saying this is a genocide. And people are putting their necks, their lives, their professional lives, their families on the line to stand up against genocide at this time. It is our moral imperative to have their back as they receive these unjust public lashings by way of Brooke Jenkins, by way of the district attorney in San Jose, and how they're coming for the Stanford 11, and how they're coming for the Fulton 25 abroad.
This feels like the issue of my lifetime. Like the fact that right now we have a mayor, we have Scott Wiener who's trying to go for Congress, we have Manny who's trying to work his way up the ladder, we have Brooke Jenkins, clearly a Zionist herself.
And what she's doing against the Golden Gate 26 is just the latest example of this elitist corruption at the very top.
She is spending all her resources pursuing these prosecutions. Meanwhile, maybe, we could talk about a couple of the cases that she decided, not worth it.
Yeah.
Brooke Jenkins thought it'd be a good idea
to let 4 policemen from Baltimore who were visiting San Francisco that had been accused of raping a woman. She thought it'd be a good idea not to press charges on them. It's cool. Come to San Francisco, wait women. Brooke Jenkins has your back, officers.
Yeah.
It's wild too because 2 of those officers were actually indicted for separate related crimes, and they were already like in jail. And it was just like, you still don't even want to take this case? Like, geez.
You're going to spend all your resources going after these, protesters.
And then Ike O'Neill, obviously, Chesa Bodine was pressing charges against the officer who killed him. Ike O'Neill, unfortunately, was fleeing a scene. He just stole a vehicle, and then he got out of the vehicle. He didn't hurt anybody. He didn't pose any threat. But this rookie officer decided to pull out his gun and shoot him in cold blood.
Yeah.
So Chesa Bodine, it was going to be a clear, cut case. But as soon as Brooke Jenkins came on, she dismissed the charges, everything. And that officer walked away. And then the same thing with Banco Brown. She sided with the security officer. Like we all saw the video. Banco Brown clearly is walking away and you're being shot. Like there's no fucking excuse for that.
Just putting property on a higher echelon than the people that she's kind of ruling over as DA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brooke Jenkins decided to relieve every police officer who had pending charges hanging over their head.
And she dismantled the whole fucking Innocence Project in SF. That's gone now. She's fired so many people that worked in there. And then people have left because they're like, I don't want to work with this terrible person, obviously.
It's so disrespectful. The blatant corruption, black and white corruption.
Yeah.
For which she is the beautiful black face of. I say that to say these are all devices of white supremacy that people like Brooke Jenkins are carrying out. And it is in keeping with the power structure that people who look and sound like us, who look and sound like us in this room, who look and sound like a Kamala Harris, who look and sound like POC people, it is in keeping with their power structure that we come for one another. So it is extra divisive and delicious for them to have another San Francisco black district attorney relieve the police officers of pending charges and come for us. I mean, by now, we all understand that the system is not working. And if you're coming for anybody, it shouldn't be goddamn protesters. It should be the people at the top. But hey, you put a cute, sweet face in a district attorney's office, it makes they're coming for us and turning a blind eye to them.
Meanwhile, you have, it's close to 40% of the people who are in county jail are black. Meanwhile, outside, it's 3 to 5% of the population here is black in San Francisco. It's been bled out because at one point it was 20.
That deserves repeating. San Francisco is between 3 to 5% black. And of that 3 to 5%, who knows how many of them are second generation, third generation. A lot of that 3 to 5% got flown in with all the other new cats and gentrifiers.
I just feel like it's really key for people to keep in mind intersectionality. There's just so much identity being thrown out. It's obviously with politicians.
Sure.
I'm this, I'm a woman of color, like London Breed, Brooke Jenkins, 2 black women. But then we don't talk about the class aspect, and how they want to be basically in proximity to whiteness. How we're talking about white supremacy. You're still reinforcing capitalism, working within the frame, trying to basically adhere to whatever the system tells you to do. And then basically, I feel like there's different factions of that as well. People will claim they're an abolitionist, anarchist, but they're a capitalist, which is wild to me, or a socialist and a pro-capitalist. I'm a total anti-capitalist. I believe, we all deserve to have fucking means, and it's just wild. I mean, there's just so many different layers I could get into with that, but it's just interesting that a lot of people, they take these identities and they're not really being transparent about what it really means. They're just using it as a way to, just basically buy people.
If I may piggyback off of that, one might be a non-racist, but you cannot be an anti-racist without being an anti-capitalist. I just want to be a little more clear about Brooke Jenkins. At their inception as district attorney, they cut off the head of their predecessor and then proceeded to drop all the charges on those police who were being charged with everything from corruption to sexual violence. Brooke Jenkins was a district attorney who decided not to prosecute the Walgreens security officer, Michael Wayne Anthony, who on the job assaulted and murdered in cold blood our trans family, Banco Brown.
I mean, she refused to even release the tape that they had in their possession for weeks.
Fresh on the job, what do? Now look out for us. Banco Brown was a black trans man who was going through hardships financially, as so many of us are, and allegedly was stealing some snacks at the Walgreens that is now gone on Market and 4th. Security guard Michael Wayne Anthony took it upon himself to beat the hell out of Banco, and then once Banco had stepped off the premises, shot Banco dead. This would seem to be a clear-cut case of, hey, this is a one-sided attack. You gotta at least prosecute the dude. You have to prosecute Michael Wayne Anthony. Brooke Jenkins and London Breed did none of that. They took the side of the corporate interests of Walgreens and let Michael Wayne Anthony walk. By the way, it wasn't even from San Francisco. He's from like Stockton or some shit, obviously. You know, he's from like way out there. Wasn't a San Francisco guy. And Walgreens thought it was a good idea to put this person in 4th and Market as the security.
I mean, as we know, most of the cops do not live in San Francisco that come into the neighborhoods and are policing them. Walgreens specifically, during that entire, murder, like the corporation was being brought to court over like flooding oxycodone into the streets, which, they ended up having to settle. The militarization, I mean, now, like, you go into a Walgreens and everybody, you see the plastic sort of casing over half the items.
All the toothpaste, deodorant, all that shit.
For sure, yeah. And at the same time, like the company was trying to distract from the fact that it was flooding the streets with all of this oxycodone. At the same time, trying to pin its revenue going down on things like shoplifting. When later, or one of the CFOs like came out and on the record was like, oh yeah, maybe we kind of oversold that idea of shoplifting affecting our bottom line. And, it was actually these other reasons. At the same time, the security guards are getting the message that you have to go so hard on people.
Crime is really just another word for poverty, is it not? So Brooke Jenkins or pretty much any district attorney makes a career off of punishing poverty. They're not coming for anybody who makes $100,000 and up.
I was just seeing in Canada, they're trying to prosecute Sam Altman of OpenAI. In Canada, there was a mass shooting that resulted from somebody having ChatGPT psychosis.
Oh, wow.
And so they're actually, attempting to go after Sam Altman for that case. Imagine Brooke Jenkins ever, bringing that idea up. But yeah, thank you both for bringing people a little bit more education about some local villains. And wondering how people can best follow your work and follow you if you are cool with being found.
Yeah, my Instagram is Joshua N.L. Reyes. Just holler at me.
Yeah. Balto, Frisco Voices, Instagram. I also have a website, but it's not as updated because unfortunately people don't read, but it's friscovoices.org. But please, send me a message, anything I can do to help out, or if you got something you want to work on. I'm Always down to collab.
Thank you for listening to the show, and especially thank you to everyone who is contributing over at patreon.com/SadFrancisco. You're making it possible for Sad Francisco to exist. And if you're not already a member, think about joining. Again, it's patreon.com/SadFrancisco.